How inmates survive U.S. maximum security prisons. There are places in America where survival is measured one day at a time. Behind layers of concrete, steel, and razor wire, thousands of inmates wake each morning knowing that a single mistake can permanently change, or end, their lives. Violence is always possible, trust is rare, and even silence can carry consequences. Yet somehow, year after year, men continue to survive inside institutions specifically designed to control every movement they make. What allows someone to endure life inside one of America's toughest prisons? The answer is far more complicated than most people imagine. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe for more in-depth crime documentaries, and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. To understand how inmates survive inside America's maximum security prisons, we first have to understand what survival actually means. It is not simply avoiding violence. It is learning an entirely different way of living. Every conversation, every meal, every glance, every decision carries consequences. And what happens after the first few days behind those walls is even more revealing. The first day. For most inmates, survival begins before they ever reach their permanent housing unit. After sentencing, prisoners are transported through a carefully controlled network of federal or state facilities. Handcuffed, shackled, and closely monitored, many spend hours, or even days, moving between transfer centers before arriving at their final destination. The first thing many notice is not the noise. It is the silence. Maximum security prisons often operate with remarkable order. Loud chaos is less common than many movies suggest. Instead, there is constant observation. Correctional officers watch. Security cameras record. Other inmates quietly study every newcomer. The arrival process is highly structured. Officers document tattoos. They photograph scars. Medical staff conduct examinations. Personal belongings are searched. Nearly everything from the outside world disappears. Clothing, jewelry, phones, money. Personal identity slowly gives way to an inmate number and institutional routine. For first-time prisoners, this transition can be psychologically overwhelming. Former inmates have frequently described the intake process as the moment reality truly begins. The courtroom is over. Appeals may take years. Now comes daily life. But reaching the housing unit introduces an entirely different challenge. The people already living there. And those first impressions often matter more than newcomers realize. The rules they encounter are rarely written on prison walls. Yet everyone seems to know them. Understanding those unwritten rules becomes one of the most important survival skills an inmate can develop. And breaking them, even accidentally, can have lasting consequences. The next stage reveals why. Learning the unwritten rules. By the time a new inmate reaches his assigned housing unit, he has already been searched, photographed, documented, and processed through multiple security checkpoints. But now comes the part that no orientation handbook can prepare him for. The prison population has already established its own order. Correctional officers enforce institutional rules. The inmates enforce a different set. Most people imagine maximum security prisons as places of constant fighting, but many former inmates describe something more complicated. Violence is certainly present, yet it is often controlled by an invisible system of expectations. Those who understand that system are more likely to avoid unnecessary conflict. Those who ignore it often learn the hard way. The first few hours inside a housing unit are usually spent observing. New arrivals quickly realize they are being watched. Not just by officers. By everyone. Some inmates quietly read books from their bunks. Others play cards. Some exercise in their cells. Many appear uninterested. But experienced prisoners often notice everything. How someone walks. How confidently they speak. Whether they appear nervous. Whether they respect personal space. Whether they ask too many questions. In prison, information has value. Every new arrival represents an unknown variable. Could he be trustworthy? Could he become a problem? Could he be working with investigators? No one knows. Trust, if it develops at all, develops slowly. Housing assignments vary by institution. Some inmates live alone. Others share small cells designed decades ago. Inside those concrete rooms, privacy barely exists. Every possession has its place. Every routine develops for a reason. Former correctional officers often explain that experienced inmates can immediately recognize someone unfamiliar with prison life simply by watching how they organize their property. Even something as ordinary as where a person places his shoes or food can reveal that he has never been incarcerated before. Those details may seem insignificant outside prison. Inside, they attract attention. One of the first lessons concerns respect. Respect inside prison does not necessarily mean friendship. It means avoiding unnecessary confrontation. touching another inmate's belongings without permission, interrupting conversations, staring for too long, sitting in someone else's usual place. All can create tension. In an environment where people have little personal freedom, the few boundaries that remain become extremely important. The same principle applies inside communal areas. The dining hall, the recreation yard, the showers, the phones. Every location develops patterns. Experienced inmates know them instinctively. New arrivals must learn quickly, because mistakes are rarely forgotten. And sometimes they are deliberately tested. The quiet tests. Not every challenge inside prison begins with violence. Many begin with observation. A newcomer may be asked for a small favor, borrowing food, using hygiene products, watching someone's property, delivering a simple message. None of these requests necessarily involve criminal activity. Yet experienced inmates understand that accepting certain favors can create obligations. Former prisoners have often described prison as an environment where debt is dangerous. A package of instant noodles, a cup of coffee, a bar of soap. On the outside, these items appear insignificant. Inside, they can function almost like currency. Because prison commissaries limit purchases and many inmates have little or no financial support, everyday products carry real value. Accepting something without understanding the expectation behind it can create problems later. This is one reason seasoned inmates frequently advise newcomers to avoid unnecessary borrowing. Independence reduces obligation. Obligation creates vulnerability. The same principle extends beyond material possessions. Information also has value. Asking questions about another inmate's charges, family, gang affiliation, financial situation, legal case. These subjects are usually approached carefully. Curiosity may be interpreted as something else entirely. Prison teaches people to guard information. Not because everyone has something to hide, but because information itself can become leverage. That cautious atmosphere affects nearly every conversation. Even friendships develop differently than they do outside prison. Relationships inside maximum security prisons often form slowly. Shared work assignments, educational programs, religious services, law libraries, recreation periods. These environments allow inmates to observe each other's behavior over time. Consistency matters. People notice who keeps promises, who creates problems, who attracts disciplinary reports, who stays out of conflicts. Reputation becomes one of the few things an inmate truly owns. Once damaged, rebuilding it can take years. Sometimes it never recovers. Yet reputation alone cannot guarantee safety. Because another force shapes daily life inside many maximum security prisons. One that has existed for generations. The influence of prison gangs. Power behind the walls. Not every maximum security prison operates the same way. Some institutions experience relatively low levels of gang activity. Others have struggled for decades with organized prison groups that influence everything from contraband trafficking to inmate alliances. The exact level of influence depends on the facility, the state, and the prison's population. Groups such as the Aryan Brotherhood, the Mexican Mafia, the Black Guerrilla Family, the Texas Syndicate, and other regional organizations have, at various times, exercised influence inside different correctional systems. Their histories are well documented through criminal investigations, court records, and correctional reports. It is important to understand that not every inmate belongs to a gang. In fact, many actively avoid affiliation whenever possible. But avoiding involvement is not always simple. In some prisons, housing units naturally separate into familiar social groups. Sometimes based on geography. Sometimes based on shared backgrounds. Sometimes because decades of prison culture have reinforced those divisions. New inmates quickly recognize these patterns. Where people sit during meals. Who exercises together? Who walks the recreation yard together? None of it happens by accident. Correctional administrators continuously work to reduce gang influence through intelligence gathering, strategic housing decisions, disciplinary segregation, and specialized investigative units. Many prisons have significantly improved their ability to disrupt organized criminal activity compared with previous decades. Even so, prison gangs remain a continuing concern in numerous correctional systems across the United States. For inmates who simply want to complete their sentence, navigating these complex social dynamics becomes another survival challenge. And sometimes the greatest danger does not come from other prisoners. It comes from breaking institutional rules. Because inside maximum security prisons, discipline can change an inmate's life overnight. What happens after a serious rule violation is even more restrictive than most people imagine. When the rules are broken, Every maximum security prison operates under an extensive set of institutional rules. Some are obvious: possessing a weapon, assaulting another inmate, attempting to escape, introducing contraband. Others are less dramatic but still carry serious consequences: refusing a direct order, failing to report for a work assignment, tampering with security equipment, destroying prison property, threatening staff or other inmates. Correctional officers document these incidents through disciplinary reports, and depending on the severity, an inmate may face an internal hearing. Unlike a criminal trial, these proceedings determine institutional sanctions rather than new criminal convictions, although serious offenses can also be referred for outside prosecution. For inmates, disciplinary hearings are more than administrative paperwork. The outcome can reshape daily life. Privileges disappear. Commissary access may be suspended. Phone calls become limited. Recreation time can be reduced. Educational or vocational opportunities may be revoked. Good conduct time, where applicable, may also be lost, extending the amount of time some inmates remain incarcerated. For prisoners serving life sentences, even without the possibility of release, disciplinary records still matter. Housing assignments, work opportunities, visitation privileges, and security classifications can all be affected. One incident can follow an inmate for years. And sometimes, punishment extends beyond the loss of privileges. The most restrictive form of institutional discipline is placement in restrictive housing, often called administrative segregation or disciplinary segregation, depending on the reason for confinement. Popular culture often refers to it simply as solitary confinement. In reality, policies vary considerably between prison systems. Some inmates are placed there after serious rule violations. Others may be housed separately for their own protection. Some are held temporarily during investigations. Whatever the reason, life inside these units is dramatically different from life in the general prison population. Cells are usually compact. Furniture is minimal. Movement is tightly controlled. Meals are delivered through secured slots in steel doors. Recreation, when permitted, often occurs alone in enclosed outdoor cages or small exercise areas. Human interaction becomes limited. Conversations occur through concrete walls or narrow door openings. For some inmates, the silence becomes more difficult than the confinement itself. Numerous psychological studies have examined the effects of prolonged isolation. Researchers have documented increased anxiety, depression, sleep disturbances, difficulty concentrating, and heightened emotional stress among many prisoners held in long-term restrictive housing. Because of these findings, correctional systems across the United States have faced ongoing legal and policy debates over when and how restrictive housing should be used. Some states have reduced its use. Others have revised policies governing how long inmates may remain there. Even so, restrictive housing continues to exist in many maximum security institutions, particularly for inmates considered serious security risks. Former prisoners often describe counting every sound, every footstep, every meal tray sliding through the door, every key turning in the lock. Time itself seems to change. Days blend together. Weeks become difficult to separate. Months can feel endless. Yet for some inmates, surviving segregation requires creating structure where almost none exists. Reading, writing, exercising inside a tiny cell, studying legal documents, following strict personal routines. Anything that prevents the mind from drifting into despair. Because inside those walls, mental endurance becomes as important as physical survival. But restrictive housing is only one part of prison life. The daily routine outside those units is demanding in a very different way. And it begins long before sunrise. A day measured by the clock. Life inside a maximum security prison follows an almost unchanging schedule. The exact times vary between institutions, but routine is one of the most powerful tools correctional facilities use to maintain order. The day often begins before daylight. Lights come on. Morning count begins. Correctional officers verify that every inmate is present. No movement occurs until the count is complete. Accuracy is essential. Every person must be accounted for. Only after clearance does the institution gradually come to life. Breakfast is served according to carefully controlled procedures. Housing units are called one at a time. Movement is monitored. Officers watch entrances, exits, and dining areas. Conversations remain relatively quiet. The meal itself is usually brief. Hundreds of inmates must pass through efficiently before the next scheduled activity begins. After breakfast, daily assignments vary. Some inmates report to institutional jobs. Others attend educational classes. Some participate in vocational training, substance abuse programs, or religious services if eligible. Many remain within their assigned housing units. High-security institutions often restrict movement more heavily than lower-security prisons. Doors open only according to schedule. Entire sections may stop moving while another housing unit passes through a corridor. This controlled movement reduces opportunities for conflict and helps officers maintain security. Every transition is planned. Every destination is recorded. Institutional jobs serve several purposes. The prison continues to function because inmates perform many essential tasks: laundry, kitchen work, building maintenance, cleaning common areas, groundskeeping, clerical assistance. Depending on the correctional system, eligible inmates may receive modest compensation for these assignments. The amount varies widely, and in many cases is only a small fraction of what similar work would earn outside prison. Still, these jobs provide more than limited income. They offer structure, responsibility, a break from endless hours inside a cell. For many long-term inmates, routine becomes a survival strategy. Knowing exactly what tomorrow will look like creates a sense of stability in an environment where freedom no longer exists. One former prisoner described it as learning to divide life into manageable pieces. Not years. Not decades. Just the next meal. The next count. The next work shift. The next visit. The next letter from home. Because thinking too far ahead can become emotionally overwhelming. That quiet discipline helps many inmates endure years of incarceration. But no amount of routine can eliminate one of the greatest pressures inside maximum security prisons: living under constant surveillance. Every move is being watched. Unlike the outside world, privacy inside a maximum security prison is almost non-existent. Security cameras monitor common areas around the clock. Officers conduct routine patrols. Cell searches occur without warning. Mail may be inspected according to institutional policies. Telephone calls are typically recorded and monitored, with legally protected communications, such as properly arranged attorney-client calls, subject to different rules. Movement logs document where inmates go, when they leave, when they return. Visitors pass through security screening. Packages are inspected. Even recreation occurs within clearly defined boundaries. This level of observation serves multiple purposes. It helps prevent escapes. It reduces opportunities for organized criminal activity. It allows officers to respond more quickly to emergencies. And it provides evidence when incidents occur. Many correctional officers describe surveillance as one of their most important safety tools. Yet for inmates, it creates a psychological reality unlike life anywhere else. Very little goes unnoticed. An argument. A suspicious exchange. An unusual change in routine. Someone paying unexpected attention to another inmate. All may attract institutional scrutiny. Survival therefore depends not only on avoiding conflict with other prisoners but also on understanding that nearly every action occurs within a highly controlled environment. Even then, complete safety is never guaranteed. Because sometimes, despite every precaution, violence still erupts. And when it does, the prison can transform in a matter of seconds. That moment, and how both officers and inmates respond, reveals another side of life inside America's maximum security prisons. When violence breaks out. For all the planning, surveillance, and security that define a maximum security prison, no institution is completely immune to violence. Most days pass without major incidents. But when violence does erupt, it happens with extraordinary speed. A disagreement in the recreation yard. An assault inside a housing unit. A weapon discovered during a search. A fight in the dining hall. Within seconds, alarms sound throughout the institution. Correctional officers respond immediately, often following carefully rehearsed emergency procedures. Housing units may be locked down, inmate movement is suspended, and additional staff are deployed to restore order. In many prisons, specialized response teams are trained specifically for high-risk situations involving barricades, coordinated disturbances, or assaults. Medical personnel stand by while investigators begin documenting exactly what occurred. For inmates not involved in the incident, the consequences can still be significant. Entire housing units may remain confined to their cells for hours or even days while officers conduct searches for weapons or contraband. Every cell is inspected. Every common area is examined. Interviews are conducted. Security footage is reviewed frame by frame. Life slows to an even more restrictive pace. Former inmates often describe lockdowns as periods of intense uncertainty. No one knows how long restrictions will last or what changes may follow. Meals are delivered to cells, recreation is suspended, visitation may be cancelled, and normal routines disappear overnight. It is during these moments that one lesson becomes unmistakably clear. Survival inside a maximum security prison is not about appearing fearless. It is about making decisions that reduce unnecessary risk. Many long-term inmates survive not because they are the strongest men in the prison, but because they learn when to speak, when to remain silent, when to walk away, and when to avoid situations that could quickly spiral beyond their control. That quiet discipline often determines who completes a sentence without serious incident. Life beyond survival. For those serving lengthy sentences, survival eventually becomes something more than simply making it through another day. Many begin searching for purpose inside an environment built around restriction. Some earn high school equivalency diplomas. Others complete college correspondence courses where available. Many participate in vocational programs, religious services, cognitive behavioral therapy, or substance abuse treatment designed to reduce future offending. Some become jailhouse lawyers, spending years studying legal materials to assist themselves or fellow inmates with appeals and civil cases. Others write books, create artwork, mentor younger prisoners, or reconnect with family members after years of broken relationships. Not every story ends this way. Some inmates continue to struggle with violence, disciplinary problems, or gang involvement. Others leave prison only to return after committing new crimes. But many eventually complete their sentences and face an entirely different challenge. Life outside. Finding employment. Rebuilding trust. Adjusting to technology that changed during years of incarceration. Learning how to make everyday decisions without prison schedules dictating every hour. For those who spent decades inside maximum security institutions, freedom itself can become unfamiliar. The habits that once kept them alive behind prison walls do not always translate easily into ordinary life. The prison gates may open, but adapting to the outside world is often a journey of its own. Maximum security prisons exist to protect society from individuals convicted of serious crimes while maintaining order within some of the most challenging correctional environments in the country. Inside those walls, every day follows a carefully controlled routine. Every movement is monitored. Every decision carries consequences. For correctional officers, the mission is maintaining safety in an environment where tensions can change without warning. For inmates, survival depends on discipline, awareness, and adapting to a world governed by rules few people outside ever experience. Hollywood often portrays prison as non-stop violence or dramatic escapes. The reality is more complex. It is a world of routine, observation, isolation, structure. Long periods of waiting interrupted by moments that can change everything. Understanding life inside these institutions does not excuse the crimes that brought many inmates there. Instead, it offers a clearer picture of one of the most restrictive environments in the American justice system, and of the human realities that exist behind walls most people will never see. Thank you for watching. If you found this documentary informative, subscribe for more carefully researched stories exploring prisons, criminal investigations, and the realities of the justice system. Until next time, thank you for being here.